Okay then, councillors, as we gather here today in Town Hall, we're on the unceded lands of the Palawa people, the original and ongoing owners. We open today's ordinary meeting at 1:01 p.m. Thank you. Thanks for the councillors in attendance and noting that we have apologies from Councillor Gibson and the Deputy Mayor. Thanks to those from the community who are joining us and those who might be listening in as well. Just as a part of the Meeting Procedures Regulation 2025, Regulation 8 states that we just inform the public that there is an audiovisual recording that's being made of this meeting here today. I've got a couple of mayoral acknowledgements that I would like to start with today. Thanks, Liz. Thank you. I'm going to start with an acknowledgement of Councillor Heather Barwick and her passing most recently. We know that this will be felt deeply across, in particular, the Georgetown municipality and community, but we know that her influence and engagement stems far beyond just Georgetown. So Heather, she gave decades of her life to the community after first being elected in a pretty good year, 1989, apart from the AFL Grand Final that year. And she went on to become Georgetown's first female mayor in 1995. She's the longest running continuously serving councillor. And that kind of commitment, it really says a lot about who she was and how she really cared about the place and the people that she represented. Her contribution, it went well beyond council, as we all know. Like through her work, she was a JP, and her involvement in so many of the local projects and community groups. She was someone who really kept showing up and getting on with it, and that does leave a lasting impact and legacy. So on behalf of the City of Launceston, I really do want to acknowledge Heather's contribution to local government and community, and the broader community of Tasmania, not just the ones in which she served as an elected representative. And to pass on our sincere condolences to her family, friends, colleagues, and our friends in the Georgetown community. I'd like to make one more mayoral acknowledgement here today, and I'm really pleased to be able to announce that the City of Launceston has been formally recognised as a skilled workplace under Mental Health Australia's Workplace Recognition Program. Now, this is in large thanks to our internal workplace health and safety team, and I'm really pleased to see that we've got Jocelyn and Ozzy here today, and I've got a certificate that we'll present in just a moment there, but I think it's worth giving a little bit of information and insight. So this is a really prestigious accreditation, and it celebrates our ongoing commitment to really fostering a supportive environment where mental health is really prioritised. So since launching our mental health first aid training, this was rolled out in 2022, the Workplace Health and Safety team, they've supported nearly over 150 council staff, and that's a really significant portion of our workforce. So to undertake that mental health first aid training is a really, really great initiative here at the City of Launceston. The training, it equips participants with the skills to recognise signs of mental health issues. It provides that initial support, and it helps to guide individuals towards professional help. It's been described as sort of like CPR for the mind, which is really cool. So achieving this status, it's really positioned the City of Launceston as a leader in workplace mental health, aligning with our values of people first, leadership and community resilience. It also opens doors to further resources and networking through Mental Health Australia programs, helping us to continue to evolve our support system. So a huge shout out to everyone who's participated, everyone who's been a part of this project and initiative. And if I could please invite Ozzy and Jocelyn to just come forward, and I'll present the certificate. Excellent. Right, moving forward now through the agenda to agenda item number 3, which is declarations of interest. Councillor must declare any interest that the councillor has in any matter before any discussion on that matter commences. Do we have any declarations today? Okay, we'll move forward then to confirmation of minutes 4.1. Recommendation being that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the City of Launceston Council held on the 5th of March please be confirmed as true and correct record. Councillor Palmer, seconded. Councillor Marsden. Any contributions? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present. The motion is carried. At 5, we've got council workshops. That's 5.1. The report states in which the workshops were conducted, and the recommendation being that council notes the council workshops conducted and attended since the last council meeting. For those purposes, published in this agenda. Somebody please to move. Councillor Britton, seconded by Councillor Harris. Contributions? Councillor Harris is the seconder.
I need to say that the presentation we had on the impact of the Foo Fighters based on actual card transactions was fascinating, to say the least. There were things you don't know actually happened, things you thought might have happened weren't shown up as much, but it was just brilliant to see what the Foo Fighters actually brought to not only our city, but also has it expanded around the whole Tamar and northern region. So it was great to see that actual data. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Any further contributions to workshops? Okay, we'll move forward through the agenda then after we go to a vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. We've got no councillors' leave of absence identified or community reports, so we'll move to 8, which is questions by members of the public. At 8.1, we've got questions on notice by members of the public, which are responded to and published as a part of this agenda. Moving to 8.2, which is questions without notice by members of the public. If you could please refrain from asking more than 3 questions and just please start with your name and suburb. Thank you. Mr. Ginninan.
You sure? Oh, that's good. Oh, dear me. I think I'll lose both of those on both counts. I guess my first question is the Japanese visit back in 5 months ago by Launceston City Council. I thought we were going to see a final report and some initiatives put in place following that visit, but I haven't to date seen anything in regards to that. So I'm interested to know, obviously, where that is at. I had a couple other questions, but I'll ditch those for fuel. Last night I was at a function and a tourism representative mentioned there's been a large number of cancellations for people that were travelling on the Spirit with their caravans to Tasmania. So obviously a fair bit of concern there. And who knows, the war might finish tomorrow. It might go on for several months. So I guess a couple of questions there. One is, what contingencies is council putting in place to look at the consumption of fuel and other things that may cause or may be an excuse for the council to increase their rates in May or June? So, you know, if there's tenders that are going to use a lot of materials that are fuel-based, etc., maybe they're delayed or whatever. The second one is for the community itself, whether the council can't put out to ratepayers, i.e. a Facebook page or something in the Examiner on a regular basis to encourage people to look at if fuel prices go up to whether saying to $3.50 a litre or to $4 a litre, and there is rationing with fuel, you know, what can the council do to encourage the ratepayers to be more conservative or helpful to others in that sort of situation? Yeah. And I think that if, even if, you know, we get over the war tomorrow, it's still going to be a protracted time before the cost of fuel and availability of fuel comes down. And I don't think it would be bad initiative to encourage people to utilise less fuel anyway. So some of the things could be, and I see in Asia, they've already gone to a 4-day week, which the council here would be familiar with, so that they haven't got as many people driving to work. Public transport is free. The train is utilised more, although I don't know how we go between Launceston and Hobart. and kids are taught to ride bikes to school or actually walk to school rather than being driven to school, carpooling, meetings online, and a whole host of other things that the council could encourage its ratepayers to do, which, if it does become a crisis, then we're in a better situation.
Great, thank you. I'll take those questions on notice. We'll look at the ICADA reporting and also what potential initiatives or strategies the City of Launceston has in place around fuel and the promotion of active transport and other initiatives around reduction. That's great, thank you. Further questions?
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Rosalind Ives, West Launceston. This matter came up just this week, so apologies for being my second week in a row. It's understandable that a system is needed for checking in visitors entering the town hall. Can you hear? Mm-hmm. Some might argue that our magnificent town hall building is a people's place and should be accessible to all comers. Since the transfer of the information centre to the reception area, it is a much more people-centred area than it once was upon entering. However, with all new systems, there can be issues needing to be addressed. Access for all should be the aim, and this does not seem to be offered as well as it could be at present. I have needed to sign in 3 times of late. On Tuesday this week, I needed to ask a staff member and prove from the information desk to provide me with steps from under her desk to place in front of the sign-in screen. Since the screen is way above my head, and I know it's above many others as well. Prue needed to physically hold me up because standing on steps unsupported was not manageable. Others have commented that the screen is way too high. There are many who may be in wheelchairs, walkers, or well under the height the screen is set to pick up for the photo and entering data. Could the sign-in screen system be adjusted to ensure that safety of customers' access is assured? Is there an alternative to the sticky plastic-backed name tags being issued, which are not recyclable nor can be reused? And another matter someone mentioned this morning, they drop down on the ground. I can't physically get down there to pick it up. So I'm sure I'm one of many, many people. We need to all be able to access the town hall and these wonderful meetings. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Ives. Thank you for the feedback, and we'll take that on notice as well around what practical steps we can do. Great opportunity to be able to share that. Thank you. Any further questions without notice? Okay, we'll move through the agenda to 9, 10 and 11, in which we have no petitions, deputations or planning authority identified as a part of this agenda here today. Announcements by the Mayor at 12 are published as a part of this agenda. 13, Councillor reports. Councillor Kai.
Sorry, my voice is a bit husky today. On the 11th of March, Councillor Priest, Marsden and Mayor Garwood and myself attended the presentation by the Japanese student delegation, where 3 groups of students presented their proposed walking tour of Launceston. This group of 38 grade 11 students participated in a project titled Let's Create a Launceston City Walking Tour. They developed a walking tour map including information about the landmarks of Launceston. Their walk included QV Mag, City Park to visit the Japanese monkeys, our beautiful gorge, and they all seemed to have really enjoyed buying souvenirs such as Tim Tam biscuits from Woolies. Overall, their visit was short. It sounded like they had a great time here in Launceston. Now, the Heritage Advisory Committee is sponsoring 2 scholarships for tradespeople to attend a special 6-day practical building conservation course presented by the Longford Academy. This scholarship is for both hands-on tradespeople and those who oversee conservation work. The program offers valuable exposure to common challenges encountered when maintaining or restoring older buildings. It's an ideal introduction for anyone passionate about preserving Tasmania's built heritage. Expressions of interest is now open, and 2 successful candidates is to take part in this course. So for all those listening, if you know of anyone who might be interested, please pass this message on. And lastly, this Sunday between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m, Professor George Raze will be hosting his annual Dementia Walking Day down at the Seaport Pedestrian Bridge. And as Professor said, walking 3Ks a day reduces the risk of dementia by 25%. So hopefully see you all there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Kai. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I, along with most of the councillors around this table here, attended the Community Cabinet with the State Government here in this building on the 12th last Thursday. So it was a great opportunity for us to talk to the... No, it wasn't. It was the
Launceston Conference.
Yes, it was the Door of Hope. I was sitting around the room, but yes, the Door of Hope. It was a great opportunity for us to meet with the individual ministers, have perhaps a private conversation with them about what might matter, as well as a group effort for us to talk to them about many large items that are of concern to us as a council that we feel the state government could certainly help this council with. Prior to that, I also attended the Tas Active Living Coalition meeting, which was a hookup via Teams. It's a hookup of statewide people involved in active transport, and we were presented with a couple of presentations, one of which was the latest Hobart City Council active transport forward plans, which were quite comprehensive and probably identified to myself that we have a bit to do before we have such a plan that we can share with our community. And finally, I attended the Tassie Thunder BMX racing out at St Leonard's, where Oliver Field, the President, and the Vice President Dane welcomed me there for the day. Great to see so many people participating in this council-sponsored event. There was a number of competitors from the mainland who'd come down. They had run workshops for the Tasmanian-born competitors who don't get exposed to the higher level of BMX, but it is certainly a family-friendly event. There were people from probably 2 years old, I'd suspect, as the youngest, on their balance bike, right up to those in their 60s who were competing as well. So you had 2 and 3 generations competing in BMX, and it's a great facility that we had out there at St Leonard's. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Further contributions? Okay. 14 questions by councillors. They are responded to and published as a part of this agenda, the ones that are on notice. So we move to questions without notice by councillors at 14.2. Any questions without notice? Okay, well, we have no questions without notice or written notices of motion at 15. We move to committee reports at 16. 16.1, we've got the Northern Youth Coordinating Committee, and the recommendation as written is that council receives the report. It's been moved by Councillor McMahon, seconded by Councillor Britton. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you. I am actually lucky enough to sit on this committee as the chair, and I would like to actually congratulate Claudia Taylor, who is currently the Youth Development Officer here at Council, on what an amazing job she does bringing that group of people together. I think most committee meetings has at least 20 representatives from youth groups around our city, and to sit there and listen to the work that they're doing out there in our community is actually quite amazing, and I see that there's a lot of avenues for our young people to engage with different services and things. So congratulations to Claudia, and there is always room for improvement here at the Launceston City Council to include youth more often in some of our decisions. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor McMahon. Councillor Britton, any further contributions? Okay, it's the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. We've got at 17, connections and livability. And this one is 17.1, Carvilla Memorial Park, Flora Reserve and surrounding bushland. Now, before we do get to recommendation and debate, I will open it up if there are any noted public speakers, in which I do have Mr. Luck.
Thanks, Mayor and Councillors. Yes, my name's Dale Luck. I'm here on behalf of the Australian Plant Society Northern Group, and in particular I'm chair of our Resource Conservation Committee. We would support option 3 as recommended by Mr Jordan. As you know, we've been working in consultation with Council and Tamar NRM on the Cambridge Street Reserve for some years, and now the Carvilla Reserve. And everybody can see that there's been a visible improvement in those reserves over that period. Now, as Matt pointed out, in an ideal world, we'd probably like to see option 4 agreed to, but we understand that things have got to happen before covenants can be applied for, and so we're supporting option 3. While on one hand it may appear that the decision is being moved down the road 50 years, we understand that with the proposals put forward in this recommendation, works will be done, management plans, implementation plans will be put to Council along with financial considerations, and so we see that as a positive move. We are working up there once a month and are the prime maintainers now of the existing reserve, and have permission now to move outside the reserve in consultation with Council and Tamar NRM. And so we're putting a lot of work into this. We are seeing improvements already, and we would hope that a future Council will not go back on the direction that this Council chose back in June, July, August last year, which was to turn the whole of the remaining bushland into a reserve. And so none of us at this table can do much about that. But we see that the moves that have been recommended are the necessary first steps, and we would support, we would ask that you vote for option 3. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr Luck. Was there anybody else that would like to speak to the item? Okay, well, we'll move forward to the printed recommendation. Recommendation is that Council expand the Carvilla for a reserve boundary, and notes the consideration of environmental covenant over the identified area will occur. So somebody please to move. Councillor Kai, seconded. Councillor Walker. Councillor Kai.
During the council meeting on June the 19th, for the Carvilla Master Plan, I would like to thank the CEO and my fellow councillors for helping me successfully amend the Carvilla Master Plan by accepting S1 and removing S2 of the Master Plan, as the area in S2 contained the endangered orchids that needed to be protected along with other plants. Now, option 4 would be the optimal goal, to have expanded flora reserve with immediate conservation covenant for a long-term biodiversity protection, but I am also happy to support the council officer's recommendation to consider option 3, which provides the most balanced approach. I would like to hear what the rest of the table would like to say, but option 3 or 4, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kai. Councillor Walker is the seconder.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to begin by thanking members of the community who have, over the years, drawn attention to and nurtured the area that we're talking about at the eastern end of Carvilla, and also that drawing of attention to the council of the values that are inherent there and the values for the future of Launceston that can be created there. I do stand to support option 3 as per the recommendation by council officers. I think the officers who work at Carvilla, their primary focus, of course, is the internment and care of the cemeteries on behalf of Launceston City Council, and they do a fabulous job. And they, up until recently, this was all part of their jurisdiction. So times are changing, not just for the present in Launceston, but for the future, for the long-term future. And while option 3 that's in the report doesn't recommend that we move too quickly towards that covenant for conservation, at the same time, it does recognise the values that are inherent there, and it does steer us gently towards that outcome. Now, I think that could happen a lot sooner than in 50 years' time, but as has been acknowledged, there is work to be done. The values aren't necessarily there yet, but the values will become apparent more and more so with the increasing pressure on native floral reserves in Launceston. Whilst we do have a lot, there's probably not one that cannot be improved in terms of its status. So I do stand to support option 3, and I do encourage Council and the new Community in Place team who are managing that area to steadily move forward towards getting to the point where we can consider that additional recognition and have a conservation covenant on that property. This will be standing in excellent stead for that whole section of Launceston to have such a large nature reserve, not just for the people but for the animals as well. And in saying that, we do have to look forward to wildlife corridors connecting all the way from Punchbowl, indeed from the North Esk River, right through Youngtown to Relbia. There is the possibility here for that long-term vision to become a reality. Even though there are suburbs and houses in between, there are many, many things that we can do to help create that connectivity. And so, as I say, I do really thank our staff at Carvilla, and I do think that this also, although it's not relevant directly today, but it leads Launceston towards having to consider in the future a new cemetery, new ways of interring our loved ones, and of course we're all aware of many and varied ways in which that's possible, but that's a conversation for another day. But what this decision does today is steer our ship in that direction, and I hope that future Launcestonians will look back on this decision and thank not just this council, but more importantly, our community members for standing up for this reserve. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Further contributions? Question, Councillor Harris?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Just a question regarding what work's been undertaken recently on the Carvilla sites that we're talking about, because looking as I drive past almost every day, it looks to me like we've been clearing up underneath what I'll call the southeastern corner block of that particular site, in preparation for burning. But I was just wondering if the staff could tell us how that fits with the bushland buffer zone, or is that not part of the bushland buffer zone?
Thank you, Councillor Harris. And to our Acting Senior Leader of Open Spaces, Mr Jordan.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Harris. So in regards to the work that's been undertaken, it is in reference to fuel reduction. So it's in preparation for the fuel reduction program that's coming up in the autumn of this year. So that would be the work I think that you're probably referring to in terms of some removal of vegetation and that sort of thing.
Yep. Thank you.
Just as a consequential question for that then, if this land were to be placed under a permanent covenant, would that sort of activity of fuel reduction still be allowed, or is it actually something that's outside that? Because I agree that what you're doing is very good to do it, but obviously all those dead branches and logs are some little insect's home, I guess, as well. So.
Yeah, thanks. Correction. Yeah, there is. I guess in terms of the fuel reduction that would happen within those locations, regardless of whether it's got a covenant on it or not, it's still our responsibility. So it is still mapped essentially from our fuel reduction burn program in vegetation management units. That wouldn't change. That still remains. In regards to the activity, there's definitely improvements that we can have along the way, but As it is at the moment, it is the careful balance where it's the combination between hazard management, so fuel modified buffer zone, which is on the very periphery, if you like, of the reserve areas, and that's intended as a designed treatment that would actually reduce the amount of intensity of fire as a natural occurring bushfire in that space. So, but specifically in regards to the activity, that will continue. It would be no different to any other sort of land that we have that's got a covenant over it in that regards.
Great, thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dale, for speaking today. I'd like to thank the community for all their advocacy via email through Anna and yourself, Dale, for being here today, and all your friends. I'd like to thank Eve and the team at Carvilla for the amazing work they do. I stand to support option 3. There are many threatened species and plants out there, and it is the last stronghold for these rare species of plants, so I stand to support option 3 today. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Palmer. Any further contributions? Anything to close, Councillor Kai?
Just a quick one, thank you. As Councillor Palmer said, thank you to everyone who has advocated and who has put in all the work and the time, including Eve, to get this master plan together that will actually benefit and suit the whole community. And as we all probably know, cremation is now on the rise for the preferred choice, and this option 3 will give us 50 years to look into the future and maybe advocate for other options, such as we looked at. I think there was the digital option, there was options of turning our loved ones into gemstones. These are all other great ideas other than burials. So I would like to thank everyone for coming, everyone for being here. It's been a long journey, but I think we're getting there to a solution that everyone will be happy with. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Kai. To the vote, all those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. At 18, we've got Community Asset and Design. 18.1 is the streamlined procurement through increased use of LGAP panel arrangements for civil works. Do we have any designated speakers? No? We'll just allow Dale and the team to pop out. Great, thanks for coming. Okay, so with the recommendation for 18.1, we've got the council notes the increased use of LGAP panel arrangements and contracts and how it will facilitate a streamlined procurement process for some civil work projects. It also endorses officers to utilise the LGAP panel for those valued up to $900,000, and it notes the use of the LGAP panel arrangement and that contract will result in some tenders being awarded without council decision, which is consistent with the existing procurement policy. So that already exists too. Okay, somebody please to move. Councillor Britton's moved. Councillor Harris is the seconder. Councillor Britton.
Thank you very much. Perhaps just if we could get, say, a 45-second
sure.
rundown on what it means, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Executive Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Britton. Essentially, the essence of this is trying to speed up our time to market from when we convene a panel of officers who make a recommendation for who should be awarded work so that we can get to market faster. In some categories of work, we don't have a lot of suppliers, so that speed can be an advantage. On average, I think it's about 3 weeks we wait between a recommendation of officers and a closed council decision. And in the sample that's been provided in the report, it's clear that councillors vote in line with the officer recommendation. So this is about exercising, I guess, something we haven't traditionally done and being transparent about that, so councillors understand why they might see slightly less volume in the civil work space. Not that we aren't compliant with policy or couldn't do it now, but traditionally we haven't taken this approach.
Great, thank you.
Thanks very much. And just one more follow-up question. Do you, or I don't think this is going to, that's not a question, is this going to negatively impact any of our current suppliers and people that we use?
So at the moment, we've had the project delivery team look at who is on the existing LGAP panels versus who we use a lot for these kinds of work. We have identified that some of our suppliers are not on the LGAP panel at the moment, LGAT procurement is going through a refresh of this panel. So as noted in the report, we will be proactive in reaching out to all our suppliers, making them aware that LGAT is refreshing the panel, making, I guess, it clear based on whatever council endorses today, we intend to use it more, and encouraging them to take part in that process and join the panel.
No worries. Thank you very much. And thanks very much to the officers for bringing this forward. Obviously, I won't actually ask this question, but I do wonder why we weren't using this years ago anyway, if it was going to streamline the process. Ultimately, they could have and we could have been using this before. It's not necessarily a decision. It's just to note that we will be using this more often. I'm in agreement that we should do it, and thanks very much. Cheers.
Thanks, Councillor Britt. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you. Just start with a quick question, if I can. I notice that this talks about the broad range of goods and services in the civil works and plant and equipment, parks, playgrounds, mobile garbage bins. So just to define what civil works is that purely road, footpath construction? It won't mean building works that we might do on a building or otherwise, just to help my understanding.
That's correct, Councillor Harris.
There doesn't seem to be any losses out of this particular proposal, only gains in streamlining the whole process. I do note that it has a $900,000 limit, which means anything of big work that we might be doing will still come back through council for us to be across those ones. The $250,000 limit probably is well outdated. As mentioned in the notes, some others have already lifted that to over $500,000. I think for a lot of this stuff, it was $250,000 10, 15 years ago when I was bidding for certain council work. So I do think it's well overdue for us to have a different procedure, and this enables us to do this in that area of civil works only, although it does, interestingly enough, include the parks and playgrounds. So I assume that would be refurbishment of existing playgrounds and equipment type.
I can't speak to the parks element. I'm only in the civil works space. If there is an existing LGAT panel, what essentially happens is that instead of an individual council running a tender, LGAT does that tender process and confirms that that business meets all the requirements. So it is quite a detailed process, but it's run by someone else, and then councils can essentially piggyback off that. I assume it would be the same in the parks and playground space.
Thank you.
Thank you. A question, Councillor Kai.
Yes, my question is, if we are using LGAT's panels, how much influence does the council still have on tenders and things like that? Or does it all go externally to the LGAT's panel and we don't really have anything to do with it, if it's under the 900,000?
I'm sorry, can you clarify what you mean by influence in the process?
Does the council still get to have a say as to how we do?
Yes, so essentially businesses are invited to join the LGAT procurement panel. They go through a process and they're either ticked off or not by LGAT procurement. Then council determines if it wants to use the panel to procure that way, which it may choose not to or it may choose to, and then it can select from the businesses that have been pre-qualified on that panel. So we still are in full control of the works and who we select to do it. We're just using someone else's process. They've essentially run the tender for us, so then we don't have to put it on Tenderlink.
Right, thank you.
Great. Councillor Walker?
A few questions, if I may. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the bit I don't, I suppose, understand is with that panel, is there a risk that can, because well, could you explain the nature of that panel a bit more, the makeup of that panel? Because I see that it's not going to encourage necessarily new operators to be able to participate. I imagine it's more for established operators who would get sort of whatever it's called, accreditation or whatever, to be on that selection process. Would that be a fair assumption?
I might hand over to our team leader of procurement to answer this question.
So to answer your question, Councillor Walker, anybody is invited to take part in these panels. Essentially what happens is that LGAT go out to market. So what they're doing is they're essentially pre-qualifying contractors to put them on on this panel saying they've ticked all the boxes in regards to liabilities, their insurances, their health and safety, etc. To answer Councillor Kai's question, we will still run a tender process. Okay, so we will still issue the scope and issue the methodology, and we still have to evaluate the process. We still have to evaluate all the responses like we normally would. The only part that we're not doing is we're not losing 2 or 3 weeks trying to write a report and getting to the next council meeting. So due diligence is still carried out through the entire process, but these suppliers have been pre-qualified and submitted all of that arduous documentation that we ask for in every tender. So.
Another question, if I may. So that's that pre-qualifying process, and it's at no cost to the council. But if this work was to increase for LGAT, because more and more councils used it, we've raised the limit ostensibly from 250,000 to 900,000 by doing this, and like I say, more and more councils started using this service. Is there a risk then that for LGAT that they would have to charge for the service, the amount of work that's involved for them, I suppose?
The report covers off on the cost to people who participate in this. So if you go to page 41, suppliers pay a small management fee if they successfully secure work through the panel.
Yeah, I must say I probably haven't given it enough attention in a way. I've looked at this and tried to understand it, but there were those sort of, for me, those outstanding questions. I know that this $250,000 limit that we've had, or that all councils have in Tasmania, in terms of being able to procure suppliers for tenders, means that there is more work for councils, and that this is a methodology for streamlining that. I suppose I just have my concerns, because it, for me, is a part of a councillor's job to keep, a watching brief on the process of council issuing tenders. There's been, many a time where they are very much run-of-the-mill, but there's also been times where there are concerns, and it does raise issues that possibly weren't considered in the process. So I'd still be interested to hear from more councillors, because I do have, I can see the problems that are being tried to address, and there's a streamlining of the process. I'm not convinced that a small operator, depending on the nature of the work, is necessarily going to be able to have the ability to participate the same way as larger operators, even though, as you say, anyone can join these panels. So if anyone has anything further to offer, I'd be happy to hear that. But at the moment, I can see the benefits of the change, but I can also see the concerns for a lack of, that good governance that is what the table here provides. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Walker, and just some clarifying commentary from the Executive Leader.
Just a point of clarification in terms of getting onto the panel, their process would be no more or less onerous than our own tender process. So if we're talking about a small company being able to access it, there's still a lot of thresholds they have to be able to meet, whether they're tendering through us directly or they're going onto a panel. So if they can't meet those thresholds for LGAT, it's unlikely they'd get the work directly from us anyway, because they still have to demonstrate their capability and ability to meet all of our requirements around risk, insurance and safety.
I've got a couple of questions, but Councillor Britton, then Councillor Harris.
Thank you. Just to be absolutely clear, this is a process that we will pick the person to do the works. The actual finalisation of the works commencing, and like we're still across what's going on, and the actual job itself, and we okay the tender at the end in closed council. Is that right? Or in any? No. This one.
So it will still follow our, I guess, our purchasing processes. So we have the ability to still select our procurement policy. We would need to select a minimum of 3 people, 3 contractors as a minimum to go out. So the only thing we don't have to do is go out for a public tender. So we can still select 3, we can select 5, we can select 6. Okay. As part of that process, they will then still answer a tender like they normally would had we done it ourselves, and then we will still need to evaluate that, we will still need to keep records of that, and then we will still need to award that. All we're asking here is that as a council that you allow us to award a contract up to $900,000 excluding GST for civil works by using this panel without coming to closed council. Yeah.
Which is what we do now for 250. Councillor Harris?
Yeah, thank you. Just, it's interesting just to contemplate what $900,000 worth of work looks like, and I am always drawn to the reconstruction of Edinburgh Street for about 800 or 900 metres, runs parallel to Hobart Road and connects to Quarantine Road from Nunamina Avenue that leads to Carvilla. And that's the sort of length we're now saying. So it's not a huge length, but it's obviously $900,000 of our ratepayers' money. My question is actually about the future and how things might change. Other councils have tried using increased amount of recycled material, whether it be glass or rubber, into civil construction of roads as a way of creating a demand for a recycled product. If we choose to go down that path, does this to a degree lock us out of that, or does it in fact open us up perhaps to other people who may do this that are outside our normal group of contractors, shall we say? So just a question,
More
just a
specialised
feedback
tendering.
on that. Yeah.
Like specialised projects.
So we use recycled materials for Johnson's Road, so that's a larger project. Obviously, look, I'm aware the project delivery team is certainly looking to recycle asphalt where we can. Other projects we look at using a mix of products. This won't impact our choices around types of materials. This is more about the cost threshold and not coming to closed tender. All our existing processes are still in place, and part of this recommendation at the front is that in the interest of transparency, we submit a 6-monthly report advising which tenders have actually been awarded using this process. So there is an element for council to maintain on the public record oversight of works that are being given out.
Mm-hmm. Any further contributions? Councillor Marsden.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions from me. Firstly, with regards to the small fee that will be required to pay a successful supplier, there is a process under the standing contract agreement that contractors are prohibited from passing on the fee to customers. Do we know how that's going to be policed, and do we have any say in whether there has been a breach in that regard? Last thing we want is for our customers to be charged a higher fee to subsidise the fee of going through the legat procurement process.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you saying that we're the customer in this circumstance?
No, I'm saying it's whether we as a council, if we're going to adopt this procurement process, and there is a fee that will be paid to the legat panel that says that fee will not be passed on to the customer, as in ratepayers, do we have any way of policing that, and do we know whether we have any skin in the game when it comes to that decision?
So I think, so what you're saying, so where the 0.75% that the contractor will be invoiced from legat, whether that will get passed on to us in a little bit of fat in a contract price, then that's something that we cost of work. So that's something that we may not have considered and may not have something in place at the moment, but it's certainly something that we can look into in the future. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. And final question: we're hearing about the benefits of the council adopting the use of the legat panel arrangement. Happy to hear the pros, but I'd also like to hear the cons what are the negatives that may be if we go down this path, please?
So that covered off in the risk implications part of the report. Obviously, there is the potential that a contractor could build fat into an element of its project, depending on how detailed their quotation breakdown is. We do have a fairly good handle, given the volume of work that project delivery do on, you know, to the naked eye, the cost of something if it seems a bit off. So we have that expertise in project delivery. The other one would be a lack of uptake across the panel. That doesn't mean that we're locked into using that panel. If our regular suppliers don't choose to join the Civil Works panel run by LGAT, then we may choose not to put as much work through there. We retain the flexibility to use that or tend to work directly ourselves, so that's a risk as well, and something that we've thought about. There's potentially a policy risk that was named up, but it's already in our policies and procedures. Probably the only thing that's outstanding from a policy perspective is updating it to reflect the local government regulations, which I think we're up to version 2025 now, and I think the policy still refers to the old ones. We've also named up the governance risk as well, and then you balance that, of course, against speed to market, fast procurement, and the fact that we're very aligned. Whenever we make a recommendation, council usually endorses that.
Great. Councillor Pentridge.
My concern, and I wouldn't mind someone explaining, like we're going to allow the GAP to advertise for contractors, and so they'll be answering to them. They'll be, and they will be the ones that will basically hold the list of supposed contractors to do certain jobs, and that would come from a statewide base rather than a community base. Is that correct?
The statewide community base are the same things. So anyone who runs a business in Tasmania will be able to apply to become part of this panel. Even if we tender directly to market, anyone in Tasmania could choose to tender on a City of Launceston job.
Well, on numerous occasions, even in our current situation, there was always an indication that local contractors, Launceston-based contractors, would get a preferential treatment. Surely we lose that if it goes to a legat situation. And not that there's an issue with contractors who are a relatively small island, and the expertise should prevail. But surely people that operate in Launceston should enjoy the benefit of getting some sort of preferential treatment to do work within Launceston. I mean, that's where our money is raised. It's our community that pays for that work. So, I mean, shouldn't we be looking after our own first before we start? I mean, it's all well and good to play this, let's be fair and reasonable, and we're all Tasmanians, but charity starts at home. We should be looking after our own people before we look after anyone else.
Thanks, Councillor Pentridge. We'll just get some clarification.
We'll handle this across both of us, Councillor Pentridge. So my comment would be, I think value for money is really important for ratepayers, and in an island as small as us, there's some categories where a supplier may not be local, or there's someone who can do it better and cheaper from another part of the state. The other comment would be local suppliers may be more competitive if they're not bringing labour up to the north from the south. So a number of factors at play. We also have just a clarification around how far the procurement goes.
So if anything, it's probably actually better off if we've got a panel to choose from. So in our current market, we go public. So we go national, we go Tasmania. So anybody across the country and across Tasmania can tender for any project that we put out. So what you're saying, Councillor Pentridge, is we're actually probably bringing the market closer. So if we have a list of 25, 30, 50 contractors on our legat panel, some of them might be national, some of them might be local. So we can actually handpick who we want to go to market to by using this panel.
There is an element in our procurement policy that speaks to local suppliers, not around preferential treatment, but thought must be given to local suppliers. We can add into any of our criteria a local means test, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes as to what that looks like and how that gets put into. So ultimately, by coming into a panel arrangement, we can actually look more closely to the suppliers that we want to actually reach out to, as opposed to going to the entire market.
Unfortunately, I don't see it that way. We've had certain examples. If we don't continue growing our own people in our own community, sure, when there's no work, we'll get people from all over Australia coming in. But when there is work in those areas and times change, what are we going to do then? Be stuck in a situation like we were with Albert Hall, where we have no one here that can do the work or do the work? If we don't continue looking after our own, when it comes to a stage where we need people, we have to look after our own people and continue growing it. Sure, if there's expertise in other areas and there's a significant difference in price, by all means take advantage of it. But if we don't keep looking after our own people, we're going to end up in a situation where when things get busy, I mean, we've got Macquarie Point at the moment. I don't know where we're going to find the tradesmen. We can't find them now. Even this council can't find enough people to staff all the positions. So I think we're treading a very fine line. Look after our own before we look after anyone else's.
Thanks, Councillor Pentridge. Executive Leader Venry.
I think it's important to point out, with regard to Albert Hall, they're actually required to have a federal government accreditation because it was in part funded by the federal government, so we're not comparing apples and apples, and we are talking about civil works here. The other thing I would like to point out is, based on the sample, Council not once went against the recommendation of officers, and that was based on a much broader market than Tasmania. So if the imperative is to support local more closely, I think that's actually to the point the team leader of Procurement made, it would actually support that better than the existing process. And through the existing process, Council hasn't actually been trying to influence or constrain this to local suppliers anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Yeah, I have similar concerns to my predecessor speaking. It would appear as though the potential is there for a Tasmanian supplier, much like you see in other industries, to consistently, to have enough wherewithal to be able to consistently undercut other suppliers. And then at a certain point, if it becomes less players in the market, I don't have to talk to you about economics 101 really, but nonetheless, if there's less players in the market, all of a sudden their prices can go up. That, I think, is the risk in this situation. That, and in some ways, that's naturally how our markets work. But on the other side, while we have this procurement process within house, we don't always offer tenders to the cheapest supplier. We make other considerations, including locality. We make other considerations, including experience and local knowledge. And I think that there is the potential for that to be lost, notwithstanding what you say, which is we still get the choice. We can still look at the list and make that choice. I think that what can be potentially lost, and you wouldn't call it market collusion or manipulation, it's just what businesses will do if they can see an opportunity to, in the long term, get a greater slice of the market. In the short term, it means that they may undercut that market. So I think that is the concern. And we're talking about reasonable sized tenders. I think at present, anything over 250,000 has to go through our tender process, and councillors get to have that input. Now it'll be anything over $900,000. It's not an insignificant amount, notwithstanding Councillor Harris, through your chair's elucidation of what $900,000 is. It's for many businesses that's a significant contract. We also do tend to work with our local suppliers to help, if they're not successful, to help coach them as to how they could improve their outcomes in the future. Things that they haven't perhaps addressed in the tender process that they could address in the future. And I suppose, in concluding, Chair, I wonder if something like that you see could be still included in this process.
Is that a question to finish there, Councillor Walker? Just making sure. Executive Leader.
Yes.
Answer.
Yes, certainly we always look to do that, and I think it's important to be clear that an LPRAC procurement panel doesn't separate our team members from engaging directly with these contractors. It's essentially a panel that exists, that we access, and we still have that close relationship and feedback loop and work with these people as we deliver projects. So it's not a divorcing of officers from suppliers. We still have that close connection. It's simply a different method of procurement. It doesn't mean we're at arm's length from the outcomes or the process. We just don't have a closed council component.
Further contributions? Councillor Britton to close.
Thank you. I'm going to just ask one more quick question to try and... Okay, so if I want to get my back lawns mowed at my house and I go out to 3 different lawn mowers, make sure they all have their capabilities, certificates and all the rest, and choose... And as long as they all... I'm the one that makes sure that they do have all their credentials, then I pick one from that process to mow my back lawns. In this way, I don't have to do that first bit. I can just go to this LEGAT panel and they will, or there's a list there that they'll say, here's 3 or 4 or 10 people you can pick from. We promise that they fit all those boxes and now you can just do the tender process from there. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, I'd also just like to say that we are just noting this today. As I said, the officers have always had the ability to use this LEGAT process anyway. So I hear the concerns around the table, but I personally don't think that there is going to be any problems in the future. I think we're going to save weeks, if not months, of hyphenated mucking around, and we'll be able to move on with a lot of these jobs a lot quicker. It'll bring more efficiencies, and that all sounds brilliant to me. And I guess it's just up to all of us that we still look after any of our local suppliers when and where we can. And if we think the councils or if anybody is favouring anybody else, then we may have to step in the future. But it has not happened before, and I don't assume that it's going to happen as a result of us noting this today. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Britton. Point of order, I understand. Councillor Walker? Yeah, clarification around the recommendation.
Yeah, I don't think we're just noting. I think we are
there's an endorsement.
Endorsing.
Yep. Thank you for the point of order, and just for clarification around that, yes, the recommendation does note the increased use, but it endorses officers to utilise the panel, and it notes the use which will be consistent with Council's existing procurement policy. But there is that endorsement at dot point 2. Yeah. Okay. Items closed. So to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Pentridge and Walker against. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thanks, guys. And just a polite and gentle reminder, councillors, that there were quite a few questions in there that were covered in the report. I'm not aware of the procurement officers or the executive leader or myself being reached out to around any of those clarifications, and I do feel that there was some misunderstandings around that could have been facilitated offline. I appreciate the conversations and I appreciate the way in which we're able to work through that, but I would just like to respectfully and politely say if we could try and do a little bit of that offline, not just for our officers and the time, but also for our minute takers down here. And it's great to have Kira joining us today with Kelsey. but noting that the regulations for 2025 do note that every question has to be minuted. So just to be respectful of time, our officers and our community there around that, just very politely. In noting that, we're now going to 19.2, which is, 19.1, sorry. All right. Which is with the, we've got the delivery and performance, which is the monthly financial report. The recommendation as printed, can I please have somebody to move? I've got Councillor Walker moved, Councillor Harris has seconded. Councillor Walker, contributions?
Thank you, and I appreciate the presentation of these monthly reports. There's a few sort of standout items, I suppose, the most significant being, I'm just trying to get my documentation back, the removal of UTAS Stadium from our books, so to speak. I'd just like to ask about the implications of that, such a significant amount in terms of ongoing depreciation, which it's in this report is still represented as a underestimation, like a deficit, if you like, but not because of that, I presume, because of other reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. So you're quite right. When the stadium transfer was made official in mid-July 2025, that's when the impact, as you've noted there, of $62 million unfavourable variance loss on disposal of fixed assets, given it was transferred for a nominal sum of $1. But we did forecast operational savings in the tune of $4 to $5 million, which does include depreciation. We didn't budget for depreciation for the stadium this year, so that has not been factored in there. To speak to the unfavourable variance around $360,000, look, when we do budget for depreciation, we are making estimations on when various capital projects will be finished. Some finish ahead of schedule. We had a number of big projects finish recently, such as the Albert Hall, for example, which when they come online, we do start depreciating them. So there will always be some timing differences, and as the price of everything increases, so does the asset value and so does the depreciation cost.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for that explanation. To speak to it, people can see for themselves there the increases and decreases in regards to wage bills and various other things. I think in general there seems to be quite a favourable trend that has occurred, maybe not through design, but increases in parking fees, or not the fees, but usage at Seaport Car Park, for example, things that we can't predict and maybe shouldn't expect. Certainly the Aquatic Centre, improvements in performance there, in the Waste Centre likewise. So this is just a really handy report for those who take an interest in the performance of Launceston City Council and the performance of ultimately ratepayers' money. And I thank the officers for the report, and I recommend it to the community to get just a greater understanding of the swings and roundabouts of council business and the limited pulleys and levers that I suppose we have at our disposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Further contributions to the report? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. We move to 19.2 now, which is the 25-26 budget amendments. Recommendation being that Council by absolute majority approves the published changes to the 2025-2026 statutory estimates as published. Councillor Harris has moved. Seconded by Councillor Britton. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is the monthly, well, almost monthly, I'm sure we do it now, where we take things from our operations budget and move it to capital, and other times we move capital back to operations. They're all there to for everyone to see as per the agenda, but I would just ask the staff if there's anything they'd like to perhaps make comment on that might be noteworthy as being something unusual, or otherwise is it really just business as usual?
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Executive Leader.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Appreciate the opportunity of being able to speak to this. Look, this really is business as usual. As we get further into the financial year, you will often see projects we thought were going to be operational, they turn into capital projects and vice versa. As needs arise during the year, we do transfer budgets around, as you've identified. Probably one I will draw attention to, and it's been well discussed publicly beforehand, is the allocation of some additional funding for the sister cities visit. That's noted at 1A, page 47. That's obviously been discussed publicly before, so that is just the official transference of that budget.
Further contributions? Councillor Walker?
Yeah, I do note that increase in budget in the City Park playground equipment, I do believe it is, of up to nearly $400,000. Is that something that was expected, and under what circumstances has that the current approved amount been increased? Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Walker.
It is CP 24318. Well, so on page 52, an increase of $388,000.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Look, I'm not the subject matter expert on this, but I believe that is due to a scoping change there, not a escalation of costs or anything like that, but a change of scope in the project. It is a reallocation from another capital project as well, so we're not adding anything to the bottom line. We're simply applying some efficiencies from another capital project to the change in scope here.
Great. Any further contributions? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. 19.3, we've got GST distribution reform. Recommendation is that Council notes the correspondence from the Minister, approves the submission to be outlined in the report, and also authorises the Executive Leader to finalise and submit the submission. Somebody please to move. Councillor Harris, seconded. Councillor Britton. Councillor Harris, any contribution?
Look, this is really just for noting. The letter has been done, and it is in regard to the changes that occurred in the GST, mainly brought on by West Australia saying we're not getting our fair share. And in fact, the long-term effects, as had been identified right back at that time that was being mooted, were that states like Tasmania would ultimately pay a price for Western Australia, who have much greater forms of revenue to access than what Tasmania done, courtesy of the fact that they are in fact where most of the mining activity, and they have ability to put a resource tax on that we have a more limited ability to do in Tasmania. So it's good to see that we have been supporting the government in this particular matter. I'm not sure that it's going to, what difference it will make, and but it is something we must try to do, and it is something that is fundamentally against the original constitution of the 6 states being federated, where all would be treated equally, not that some are being treated more equally than others. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Further contributions? Councillor Walker.
A question, if I may. I note in the request from the Honourable Erica Betts, State Treasurer, that the submissions to what do they call it? The commission.
Productivity Commission.
Yeah. Actually closed at the end of February. His letter is dated January. Does that mean that we've already made a submission, or that we're still asking in this particular motion to approve the submission to the Productivity Commission as outlined in the
Yeah,
report.
thanks, Councillor Walker.
Yeah.
We can get clarification
Thanks,
on that.
Councillor Walker. Good question. Look, I can confirm no submission has been made, and I have actually reached out to the Productivity Commission to make sure that we can still make a submission. They are quite comfortable that it's been tabled today, and that will be submitted, assuming it's approved, tomorrow.
Great, good question. Yep, Councillor Walker.
To speak, if I may, look, no one is against, of course everyone's going to be supportive of Tasmania getting a bigger slice of the GST. I think that's probably a bit of a no-brainer. But this particular train has been hurtling down the tracks for a long time, and this is not something new. This seems like a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction as that train approaches the station at an alarming rate for a state government who, and this all contributes to our state's perilous condition. Yes, we knew that the changes in formula for distribution of GST were going to have these impacts on Tasmania. Tasmania has had years in which to make arrangements to account for that. We haven't done that, or we maybe haven't made some small attempt at trying to address the issue, but we are spending like drunken sailors at the moment as a state, and everyone knows that. Everyone knows there's a fiscal cliff that is approaching, and together we're about to jump off that cliff. Now, this may have some impact, and so I'm happy to support Council lending its shoulder to this particular wheel, but I don't think that we're going to get much of an audience. We may have to be bailed out in some other way in the future. I think that's more likely the reality for Tasmania. And I would suggest that in 2018, when this change did occur, was the time to be working towards rectifying that, not in 2026. But nonetheless, here we find ourselves. Good luck to the state government in trying to actually have some effect and impact upon that. Of course, there are states like New South Wales who contribute more than they are given back by GST. And there are states like Western Australia, as we know, who have rich natural resources and consequently do earn a larger slice of that particular pie. These are big questions for Tasmania, and no letter to a Productivity Commission is going to solve those. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Further contributions? Anything to close? Right, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. Okay, we move to strategy and innovation at 20.1, lease and licence policy. We've got the recommendation being that the council adopts the lease and licensing policy as published in this agenda. Somebody please to move. Councillor Walker, seconded by Councillor McMahon.
Well, sorry, I do stand to move an amended motion before the seconder, if that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I heard 21. I got excited. My apologies.
Okay.
I rescind moving this motion, sorry.
Oh, somebody to move the motion then. I'll go Councillor McMahon as the mover, seconded by Councillor Harris. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank you, the lease and licensing team, for the presentation they did at the workshop and for taking on board the changes that were suggested on the day, and I'm happy to support the lease and licence policy as it now stands in item 20.1.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Harris, anything from the table? Contributions? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. Thank you. 20.2.
20.3,
I'm just joking. 20.1. You okay, Councillor Walker? It's now closed, so 20.2. Before we get to the recommendation, we will open up. I do have noted speakers. Before we move the recommendation, Alison or Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, councillors. Nice to see you all on this beautiful day. Thank you for the opportunity to make a submission to you all. My name's Alison Anderson. I'm the Chair of Northern Tasmania Development Corporation, and I'm here to speak to you on behalf of the NTDC board and my colleagues who are here today and our staff. I think, as you may be aware, I've already written you a letter, some correspondence outlining some of the things that I would hope that you may consider in making the decision that you make today. I'm here to respectfully ask that you agree to sign our membership agreement for the next 3 years for a number of reasons. And I'm also hoping that you might consider participating in our already existing review process rather than subjecting us to potentially a fairly significant resource using extra review over the top. So I think maybe only about 6 weeks ago, Chris and I, our CEO, came in to see you all, and I gave you a little bit of a rundown of where NTDC has come from and how we are, how we're operating right now. We're really very proud of what we've managed to achieve in the last 3 years. We did start 3 years ago in a pretty disadvantageous position, and at the request of the City of Launceston and West Tamar Council and all of our members, we undertook a really comprehensive review for the agency. We got an external agency to deliver that review for us, and the results were that everybody agreed that a regional agency is an important thing for us to have, and that we needed to make some big changes. And so we did, as I detailed in my letter to you all. We rewrote our constitution, we rewrote our... Is that my time? Sorry. I'll try and be slow, quick. We rewrote our constitution, our members' agreement. We introduced the members' representatives group, which is the most important thing for us, I think, because it was our opportunity for you to continue to feed into what NTDC does and make sure that you keep holding us to account for the work that we're saying that we're going to do. We introduced the review of the chair through the members' representatives group. We facilitated the creation of a 3-year strategic plan, which we are just starting to commence for the next 3 years, and which we are deeply hoping that you will participate in with us and all of the members in a deeply collaborative way for your region to produce something fantastic. What you have right now is a true victory for your region in having a regional agency that's functioning really well, that's really seriously well resourced, that we've got some fantastic collaboration. And if you decline to support us for the next 3 years, we are at great risk of setting ourselves back all the way to the very start 3 years ago. And so I'm hoping that you will consider all of the work that all of us have collectively put into this, give that the respect and participate in helping us make it exactly what you need as a regional agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Hudson. Further speakers? Chris? Any other speakers for the item? Royce?
Hi, I'm Royce Aldred. I'm Vice President of the Launceston Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for the opportunity to address you today. I'm speaking on behalf of the Chamber to express our support for strong regional collaboration across northern Tasmania. From a business perspective, our region functions as one interconnected economic ecosystem. People live in one municipality and work in another. Businesses operate across council boundaries, freight visitors, workers and investment move throughout the Tamar Valley and the broader north. Bell Bay and the Launceston CBD, the West Tamar and Georgetown are all part of the same regional economy. For businesses and ratepayers alike, the key question is not which council leads which initiative, but whether the model in place delivers strong outcomes for the region as a whole. Regional collaboration is therefore not simply a governance preference, it's an economic necessity. A coordinated regional approach strengthens our ability to advocate for infrastructure, investment and jobs. It allows us to plan strategically for growth, including major economic assets such as Bell Bay, which supports thousands of workers and businesses across northern Tasmania. It also ensures that tourism, livability, infrastructure and economic development are considered through a regional lens. The Chamber's position is straightforward. We support regional collaboration that delivers results for businesses, workers and ratepayers. We support structures that strengthen the region's ability to attract investment and create jobs. In that context, the Chamber supports the continued role of the Northern Tasmania Development Corporation as a regional platform for collaboration, investment attraction and economic development. NTDC provides an important mechanism for councils and stakeholders to work together to promote Northern Tasmania as a unified economic region and to pursue opportunities that benefit the entire North. From a business perspective, what matters most is that regional structures such as NTDC operate in a way that delivers strong outcomes, supporting investment, industry growth and job creation across Northern Tasmania. Northern Tasmania's economy is deeply interconnected. Our governance and collaboration models should reflect that reality. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Royce. Any further speakers? Okay, we'll move. Okay, so Councillor Harris would like to bring forward an amended motion. Just a moment, Councillor Harris. Okay, just a moment for Councillor Harris to have a look through the wording there, please. Councillor Harris, just a quick moment to talk through your
Okay, so fundamentally the change to the motion still requires the CEO to request the Board of NTDC to do a review for some of the issues that we have concerns about in regard to strategic purposes and operations under the internal clause 14 of the members' agreement. And we also authorise the CEO to enter into a 3-year agreement with NTDC, because whilst NTDC may not be a perfect organisation at the moment, it is probably the best alternative of what we have, and we are simply looking to improve it.
Councillor Harris, just to then...
I won't speak on any further. Yeah.
And just ensuring that that's the correct wording that you would like to move?
Yes, well, that's the 3 years. The costs are shown. Interestingly, we didn't show the cost for one, but I expect that they will be what they would have been under the previous motion for 1 year, would have been 239,000, and that it will continue for the next 3 years, as I spoke about.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. So looking for a seconder to Councillor Harris. Councillor Britton. So now we've got a mover and a seconder. The item's live, but if I just might seek any further additional conversation or clarification from the acting CEO or senior leaders just around the live agenda item.
So through the chair, I'll refer to our senior leader, Prosperity and Innovation, Ms. Robbie.
Thank you. Through the chair. So we appreciate and understand and value regional collaboration. So the motion is not to do with that we don't value regional collaboration in response to the speakers. We recognise NTDC's role through their team and the board, that they've provided a home for regional collaboration and built strong relationships, and that's acknowledged and very much appreciated. The timing for, in terms of the recommendation, is that it's the end of one agreement and the start of another, and it seemed presented the opportunity to review enact the clause 14 and the sunset review to be able, and then with the 12 months to then really transition to an alternative model within that time, or a revised model of NTDC. So it actually provided that time to then have that, have a revised model, or maybe stay the same, whatever the review outcomes were, to be able to then move to to then settle quicker and actually do it through that process, and then coming back to council with the findings of that review.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Harris is the mover.
Thank you, and I appreciate the officer's comments. I do think that there are comments that have been made to us by other councils, mayors, and in fact some NTDC staff as well. The chairman has said that there is benefit in having a commitment from the largest council for the next 3 years to the regional collaboration model that is NTDC. Unfortunately, I've been in Launceston long enough to know that we've had many versions of NTDC. Some had other names. We struggle to get it right, and we probably never will get it perfect. However, it is something that should always be first and foremost, particularly when we have a government in Canberra that asks for regional collaboration for us before we present any projects or otherwise for funding. So what they're really saying is, we want you 8 or 9 councils to sort out your own order of what's important to you as a region, rather than the federal government coming in and having to pick winners. It is a much better way of having funding allocated. That does mean that the most important projects, regardless of where they fit in the region, whether they are in Launceston Council or otherwise, do get the priority that they deserve. And it is along those lines that I'm very keen for us to support 3 years funding going forward. It will also help with the current organisation to know that they have guarantee of funding. They've already had 6 of their other members sign up for 3 years, and I think that then gives them continuity and confidence to go forward, and particularly when you are selecting a new CEO. Having access to that confidence is vitally important for the organisation, and if we don't give them that confidence, then I believe we will be crippling them, and that's why I asked for the change from the 12-month initial support to be for the full 3 years. It is something that council officers may not see the benefit of it because they haven't been here as long as what some of us have been around, and I do think that regional collaboration is the only way forward. Launceston is big enough in itself that we will always be able to attract funding, but others are not. And we have a role as a regional hub where everything that happens in those surrounding councils probably funnels through Launceston anyway, that we must act in a regional manner and not just for Launceston. So that's really the main reason that I have asked for the change to the 3 years, to guarantee their funding, to give them what they need. As others have said, they've undertaken a full external review. We don't need another one of those. This is to be an internal review that might have to do more with the voting and other issues that have been raised to us based on perhaps other criteria other than just one vote per council. But that can be discussed in-house and come back with an agreed position. And I do think that the Chamber of Commerce has, for them to weigh into the thing, they would also have a very long memory, having existed for 175 years, that they know the value of having a regional view being expressed to other levels of government. But also NTDC provides that ideal vehicle for things that are greater than just Launceston Council area. And amongst them, we've undertaken in recent years the sporting facilities review. We have other things on our plate, if you like, that are currently being worked on, including the intermodal freight proposal out at Western Junction, which isn't in Launceston area, but Launceston stands to benefit from should we be able to move some of the freight operations out of our city. So it's very important we have an organisation like NTDC. It's very important that we support it and be seen to supporting it, and that is why I have asked for us to, and I ask all my fellow councillors to support for the next 3 years that we will fund NTDC for them to continue to do the very important work, not only for what we in Launceston will gain from it, but from what all of Northern Tasmania will gain from it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Britton is the seconder.
Thanks very much. I'm going to say this quote that I have heard in the past, and that is, when you're making a cup of tea, you have a choice. You either leave the tea bag in or take the tea bag out. If you leave the tea bag in, whilst it might appear that the tea bag itself gets weaker, it's now becoming a part of a stronger cup of tea. If you take the bag out, the tea can't get any stronger and the bag goes in the bin. I'm glad I got a laugh. I was a bit nervous about it earlier. Ultimately, I think it's partly an unfair question to ask, what does Launceston get from the NTDC? It is the Northern Tasmanian Development Corporation, and we should really be asking, what does Launceston get from a stronger, more developed, more collaborative North? And I don't think that exists without something like the NTDC. And second to that, I think if we were to pull our funding and the NTDC was to fall over, at some point in the future, we're only going to have to end up putting something like this back together. It exists now. There are clearly, having said all that, there probably are some imbalances. There are probably some things we would like to see change or happen, perhaps a louder voice at the table, perhaps more votes. I'm not necessarily sure exactly how that all sits. Perhaps we could drive it a little bit more. We could be more involved? I don't know. But the point is, I would hate to see the NTDC fall over. As I said, I think we would only have to pick up the pieces in a few years' time. This will ensure that it exists for at least another 3 years, and I'd hope that perhaps this moment of I don't want to say panic, but just a little bookmark, that in 3 years' time, when we are looking to sign on again, it is at a stage where we're not questioning whether or not it works for Launceston or anybody else, and it is an organisation that is, as it is at the moment, but that is working well for everybody involved, and we're very happy to be a part of. So there's 3 years to figure that out. I think they have done brilliant work up until this point, and as I said, for me personally, it's not necessarily what does Launceston get. We benefit massively, as I've said, from a strong north, and as I said, this is the driver, I believe, to get there. So the motion has my full support today. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Britton. Further comments? I've got Councillor Pentridge. Councillor Walker first.
I'm actually a coffee drinker myself, but look, we hear the word collaboration. No one's mentioned the word parochialism, and I think Tasmania's quite well known for its parochialism, whether it's north versus south, region by region, town by town. This is partly how we operate. We try and overcome that by being collaborative, and everyone wants to be collaborative. It all depends what part of the cycle that you're in, really, as to how collaborative you're going to be or how self-focused you're going to be. Of course, I think it's probably a no-brainer for other councillors. They are getting good value for money and good representation through NTDC. Launceston Council, being the regional centre, quite rightly should make a significant contribution to a model such as this. I'd like to, live in Meander Valley Council and, come and work in Launceston and, maybe, pay slightly less rates myself. But anyway, Launceston Council, we're 173 years old, so we're not doing too bad. We are the regional centre of the north, and we want to celebrate that, and we celebrate that with our surrounding councils. Of course we do. We want to unify the region. What is the region? We probably could have that conversation just about what that should be. What is the north of the state? What is the northeast of the state? The northwest of the state? These are bellows that can change. It probably is the state government that somewhat dictates these things. It's electoral boundaries, it's other things that we have to consider. But we need to have those conversations and to be bold to become the best that we can be. And that doesn't mean skirting around these issues. I am going to support the 3-year option. I was personally wanting to see a more rigorous, I don't even want to call it a review, but actually a process that we could enter together with the Chamber, with the surrounding councils. But let's list them all. It's Visit Northern Tasmania, VNT, NRM North, Tempt, as I say, other councils, the Regional Australia with James McKee. There's so many players. We're all wanting a similar thing, if not the same thing so often, but we have different ways of approaching that. So this review, an internal review, that's great, but I want to see, for example, us have a bigger conversation about how we can work together better, where we fit. And that does mean looking at the region itself. Now, someone who lives in Akaroa is not necessarily concerned about a footpath or a bikeway in Riverside. That's understandable. I'm not that concerned about a boat ramp in St Helens either, but that's just the way it is. So how do we overcome that? I think there are different levels that we can start to operate on. For example, we were working on a regional sporting complex process years ago. That seems to have dropped by the wayside. Apologies if it hasn't, but nonetheless, that probably doesn't involve Flinders Island that much. But it probably does involve areas of those councils that we border quite significantly, because you want those to be reasonably close to the population centre. It might be Westbury, it might be Beauty Point, or wherever it might be. So that's a region within a region. There are other regions within regions. And, you know, Visit Northern Tasmania has to deal with these types of things as well. But I suppose I digress in a way. We're here to make a simple decision. I will support it. I do support a strong regional voice. I do think we all want, we know that it's the best place in Australia anyway, and that we want to celebrate that and improve that at every step of the way. And I think that that will happen if we look at that point 1 up there. Like, the funding is one thing, and we could easily be back here in 2.5 years having the same conversation, and that's the last thing that I want. So it's the point 1 up there that I think needs to be that conversation with the Chamber, with the Office of the Coordinator General, you know, with Visit North, with the state government as well. Have that really dynamic conversation so that the review is not just more navel-gazing, but it's something that produces a dynamic result where Launceston, I think, rightly should have more say in certain decisions, but not every decision. And that West Tamar might need that same provision on certain decisions, but not all decisions. So how do we find that dynamic model? I don't think we'll find it merely through a review. I think this conversation has to continue, but it can only continue if you get that surety of the next 3 years, and we actually are prepared to have that conversation very early on in that piece. So, in that sense, I advocate, and thank you for letting me go over time, Chair.
That's all right, Councillor Walker. Councillor Pentridge, I've got Councillor Kai with a hand up as well. You'd like to go last? That's fine. Councillor Kai.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Councillor Harris for moving this amendment, and I agree with all my councillor colleagues. But here are some important words that is from Councillor Gibson, so I'll just read what he has written. Launceston is stronger when the region is stronger. That's always been my view, and it's why I consistently backed regional collaboration and the work of the NTDC. When we invest time and energy into working together, genuinely working together, turning up, staying for meetings, believing in the whole, we create outcomes that benefit all our communities, not just our own. Is there more to do? Yes. Can we be more laser focused? Also yes. That's why I support the 3-year agreement. It gives this work the stability and runway it needs, and just as importantly, it allow us to utilise the skills of outstanding operators like our Jane. Who can work hard on our behalf to shape and drive this collaboration forward. While I'm not with you in the room today, I remain a strong advocate for this work, because when we align, when we commit, and when we back the region, we are not just connected, we are stronger. And I totally agree with his words as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kai. Further contributions? Okay. Councillor Pentridge.
I seem to be the lone voice, or feel that way. I'm probably not, but my only concern, Launceston supports the northern part of our state, or the Launceston community. We are constantly, and I think record will show, and I'm not going to go through all the bits and pieces. You know, I sometimes am very concerned about how much more Launceston can afford to contribute to, right? Because I'd like to see a turn somewhere where Launceston gets something back for itself. I mean, we supply, and I won't go through the list, but we've got the swimming pools, we've got the museums, we've got the city, we've got everything else. But I think a clear message should be sent to our neighbours. Yes, I'm going to support this today. I wasn't going to, because I don't know what, because I'm only really interested in Launceston. If I wanted to live in Lagana, I'd go and live in Lagana, or any other municipality. I look after Launceston, and my concern is and the message I hope to send, we can only afford to. We would all like to be generous. We all like to do things, but we're heading into some tough times. Even with our fuel prices now and bits and pieces, our GST. I mean, Launceston needs to get something back. So I hope the other councils are listening to this. Yesterday, common sense is that we support it, and I will be supporting it. But I think that they should. I don't think they should accept or believe this was a foregone conclusion, because this could have very easily gone the other way. And I think they need to take note of that. And let's keep working together for the betterment of all of us. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Councillor Pentridge. Any further contributions? Councillor McMahon.
Thank you. It's always difficult, I guess, to stand up in a room where you probably disagree on some points, but I do agree with quite a few things that you said today. Having been in business for almost 17 years, it's a lot of budgets, a lot of marketing strategies, a lot of brand strategies, a lot of KPIs, a lot of collaboration, a lot of measurable outcomes, a lot of return on investment stats, hard decisions, long days, so many more things. And I understand that anyone who is in a role, in a position where they are making decisions that cause distress to staff or anything like that is always difficult. And obviously we heard that the CEO, Chris, is obviously leaving NTDC, which timing is probably not great. But I do have to say that I have had some concerns after sitting through 2 workshops and looking at what is our return on investment. And as a business owner, I'm looking at that all the time. So I guess that's a perspective that I'm looking at this today. And I know everyone has worked really hard on the NTDC board, especially, to get it where it is today, but I feel like we're still not on the path we need to be on. And it's how many 3 years do we keep doing to get on that path? The governance review is an important piece of work. It's not something to be rushed. That review may well identify opportunities for reform, improvement and stronger accountability. It may also surface lessons that this council and others can adapt in our own ways of working. I believe a 1-year renewal allows us to genuinely consider the outcomes of that review rather than locking in a longer-term commitment before that work has concluded and been fully understood. As councillors, we have a clear responsibility to our ratepayers to ensure every dollar we invest delivers a clear and measurable benefit. In a time where there is real discussion about economic uncertainty and the risk of recession, we need to be careful, prudent and disciplined. The question we must be comfortable answering is simple. What do our ratepayers get in return for that level of investment? And I understand what everyone has said about regional collaboration, and that is so important. We do need that. I need that in business as well. But we have to get the methods right. If we're going to be collaborating, we need to be doing it, I can't say equally, because yes, we do have to contribute more, but I think we need to do a lot of work to improve in that area. Supporting a 1-year renewal does not say no to regional collaboration. It says yes to accountability, transparency and ensuring public money is delivering real economic outcomes for our community. I absolutely recognise the intent behind NTDC and the value of regional thinking. A 1-year renewal allows us to stay at the table, support the transition NTDC needs and at the same time clearly articulate our expectations around outcomes, performance and value. It keeps the door open, it does not close it. Making decisions like this is not always easy, especially when the conversation is sensitive and there are people's futures involved. But good governance requires us to ask questions, test assumptions and be confident enough to pause before making long-term financial commitments. The 1-year option is a reasonable option. It shows leadership, it supports transition, it respects regional collaboration and it honours our obligation to Launceston ratepayers. For those reasons, I will not be supporting this alternate motion today. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McMahon. Any further contributions? Okay, to close, Councillor Harris.
Yes, thank you, and thank you to my fellow councillors for their thoughts. This is something that is not what was put in the agenda, but it is something that I believe we need to do to ensure the survival of an NTDC. I don't believe that just 1 year was sufficient to do that, and that it could in fact lead to the demise of NTDC. There's also a comment that I think I read somewhere that says it's better to be inside the tent rather than on the outside shouting, trying to be heard, which is what we risk if we only sign for 1 year, because that may see the others exclude us and then say, well, we're happy to go it alone without you. And that's to the detriment of not only those other councils, but also to Launceston. So I think together we are stronger, and I think together we should support our NTDC for the next 3 years. But I do want to see many of the changes that others have hinted at or talked about. It's not perfect, but we need to support it, I believe, for the next 3 years going forward. So I look forward to your support to this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Putting it to the vote then. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Milkman against. The motion is carried. Okay, councillors, we're just going to take a quick 5-minute comfort break. Thank you. Stretch your legs and use the facilities if required. We're just going to come back at 3 o'clock. Just 3 minutes. point 3, which is the Travalan Park cottage. I don't have any noted speakers and no one left in the gallery today. So we'll move forward to the recommendation. Oh, very interesting. Unfortunately, he's not here. So we're going to move with the recommendation as printed. That council notes the intent to demolish the residential cottage at 62 Georgetown Road and notes the proposed... Gorge Road. And notes the proposed conversion of the cottage to open space. And just a note that the absolute majority is not required and approves the amendment to the existing lease. Somebody to move. Councillor Pentridge has moved. Seconded. Councillor McMahon. Councillor Pentridge, would you like to speak to the item?
I'll go along with the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor McMahon? Sure. Any further contributions? Councillor Harris.
Yes. Whilst in general terms I would agree with this, what worries me is that we are not giving our local community the opportunity to recycle, or in fact either the house as a whole or in fact the materials of it as such, because what I believe will happen is, should we demolish the residential cottage, that will see the entirety of the existing weatherboards, doors, windows taken to the Remount Road tip, and then from that it will then just be buried in the ground, which seems a waste of a building that has stood for 100 years without having the opportunity for the community to activate or have the opportunity to try to recycle either the building as a whole or in fact the building materials as such, if the whole could.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. We've got some further clarification. Erica?
So I'll make it a question.
Yeah, it's a question.
What will happen to the demolished cottage?
Great question.
I might pass to the team leader of facilities for that comment around potential reuse through the demolition process.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. To answer your question is that dependent on the condition of those materials, there may be recycling as part of that process. However, based on the reports, there will be extensive contamination of the materials that house is built of, which may actually inhibit the recycling process.
Thank you.
Can you be a little bit more specific? Because I wouldn't have thought we had asbestos material as an example in 1920s if it was not built of that. However, it may have been added later.
Yes, so I can confirm that there is asbestos material in the house fabric. We also have a report from a hygienist that suggests that there is extensive mould and fungal spores that are throughout the building, which will need remediation. So that's an indication that there is contamination throughout the house of mould and fungal, which may need to be disposed of and can't be recycled.
Okay. Further contributions? Councillor Walker.
Well, as this table will know, and the Chair, I did have an amended motion to move, but I'm not sure who's moved and seconded this motion, as I've only just re-entered the conversation, just to complicate matters a little. I would like to move an amended motion, if I may, Chair. And that has been provided to staff, which would add a further point 4 to the existing motion, and that is currently displayed on the screen, but for the benefit of those listening or watching, I'm happy to read that out if you would wish, Chair. Thank you. That the motion be amended to include point 4 as follows. Prior to the planned demolition, the Council will offer the cottage at 62 Gorge Road for relocation for zero consideration through a public expression of interest, and requires our Chief Executive Officer to oversee the EOI process on the basis that, in the following 7 points, the relocation of the cottage is in entirely to be at no cost to the council, that the successful proponent is responsible for all associated costs and approvals, that the site be left in a condition acceptable to council, that a bond may be needed to provide prior works to be provided prior to works commencing to ensure compliance with all conditions, that the successful submission will be determined by an appropriate criteria, including but not exclusively community benefit if it's applicable, i.e. a community organisation, and a demonstrated ability to complete the task, that the CEO may execute any necessary agreements, schedules or other conditions to give effect to the outcome of the EOI, and finally, should the EOI process not result in a timely, compliant or acceptable outcome, that council will proceed with the existing motion, which is demolishing the cottage in accordance with recommendation 1. So, I'm happy to move that as amendment and seek a seconder.
I think it's a valid point, but I also asked first.
You seconded the first, though?
Yes, yeah, it's up. It'll go to the mover and the seconder for permission.
I'll second.
So you're, pardon?
No.
It's got to be agreed to first by the mover and the seconder. I'm just going to look for clarification through governance. Kelsey?
So this one will be moved and seconded by someone from the original mover and seconder, and then from there, if it's passed, then that becomes the original motion or the mover and seconder, which will revert back to the mover and seconder.
So this is an amendment or an alternate? Okay. Okay, so the amendment now has to be moved and seconded. It's being moved by Councillor Walker. It's being seconded by Councillor Kai. I've got to just, yes, sorry?
You've moved the original, you can't.
Kelsey, do we also need to ask the original mover and seconder, because it's already been moved and seconded?
Tortoise in the head.
Okay, yeah. I just got a quick question, Councillor McMahon.
So, given the fact that there's extensive mould and there is asbestos, is that the kind of building that we should be offering to someone for free to be relocated? What are the implications for us if we go, here's a house, take it. It's full of asbestos and it's full of mould spores. Like, is that ethical even?
Great.
Can anyone answer
I'll
that?
ask a question through Erica, through Senior Lead.
It's a little bit rhetorical, but I think we would say that council would do absolutely everything that we could through and make sure that it was legally possible to move on an asbestos mouldy building prior to entering into any EOI. I think the ethical question is a personal one that the councillors will have to consider.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Britton?
Yeah, just a question, because, and I'll preface that, obviously, in part I do agree with Councillor Walker's idea here, but can we just get some clarification? What is the actual process? Is it a viable thing to even assume this house can be moved? Do we know?
I'll pass on to our team leader of facilities to answer that question.
Thank you, Councillor Britton. It is a possibility that this can happen. However, it does carry extensive amounts of financial implications for that person that may choose to do that. Due to the current condition of the building, it would require significant work before it could even be considered to be moved off-site. Lots of that work will essentially remediate the entire building, and removal of the contaminated items such as asbestos, lead paint and other contaminants, including the mould and fungal spore items. then it would be a process of going through permits to be able to get it off-site, and then when it finally gets to its destination, it would eventually need to go through a full legislative requirement, and the building would need to meet current day legislation. So again, that will incorporate extensive financial costs to whoever takes that burden on.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Britton?
No, thank you. So, in its current form, its current state, can this house be moved?
Everything can be moved.
Thank you, Councillor Britton. In simple answer, no.
A question, Councillor Pentridge? Not yet. You can soon, but it's not a live item yet.
The question should be, although I've gone along, a question, goodness me, anything can be moved, and I would imagine only two people in this room that are familiar with that is yourself, sir, and me, because we've been involved in
Half
it.
an hour.
Right? So, yes, it could be, but having looked to prove a point, that's all you'd be doing. You'd spend a lot of money to prove a point, and some of us that would do it have gone past proving points. So I think the recommendation that the council have come up with, in the interest, and with Councillor McMahon, I think that it's got high voltage lines there. It's a difficult site. If it was in Invermay somewhere, that would put a completely different view on it. But being where it is, having to get it from there, down the hill, across the bridge, through the city, I just can't see the value of it. It's not the be-all, it's not to end all, it's just an old house.
Great.
So I agree
Thanks,
with
Councillor Pentridge. So Councillor Pentridge just asking those factors have been incorporated into the recommendation.
And we have done some very, very preliminary work and also identified the concerns that you raised around the challenges, particularly with the power lines, which may result in disruptions to the school, the childcare centre and the residential properties in that area. We have also not been able to confirm that the property would be able to be taken down Travalan Road. There is a question around the capacity of the bridge with the load limit there, and or it may need to go out through the West Tamar Council. There will be significant road closure permits required, even if it was technically possible.
Okay. So we've got a move. Another question, Councillor Kai?
Yes, just a question. So if the house, let's say nobody is interested in moving this house or relocating it, is any part of the house salvageable or recyclable?
So thanks, Councillor Kai. Councillor Harris did ask that in his original question, and it would be up to when it's demolished that would be assessed then at that time. And I know that we've got that pushed through quite strongly in any time that demolishments have come through the table here. It's been asked of what can be salvaged, but if there's something further to that you'd like to ask?
Once the demolition starts and things get demolished, like pulled down, a lot of things get broken during that process. So what I was thinking more is if we can indicate what is salvageable or what can be recycled before that process, that can be taken down before the whole thing collapses.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Kai. And that was reference to whoever takes the demolishment, they can do that primary assessment first and say, I'd like to keep the windows, the doors okay, and they'll do that before it's demolished. Is that correct?
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we've got the mover and the seconder of the amended motion. So to speak to the amended motion, Councillor Walker, and then the seconder gets to speak to the amendment, or we go straight to the vote? Yeah. Just the amendment. Yeah. Councillor Walker.
Thank you. And look, clearly a lot of the things that were discussed were probably, potentially points of order, really. This is not the time nor place to discuss the likelihood of a door being recycled or anything like that. At the moment, we're just discussing the concept of potentially offering this house for relocation. And the point to that is not whether we think it can be done, not whether we think that the mould is too bad or that the joists aren't great or that it may or may not make its way down Gorge Road to Travalan Road and across the bridge. That's up to someone else who would be the successful applicant to decide whether that's possible. The point of this particular amendment was not to put more work on the council to try and ascertain that, because that would take months. It was to offer this as a first point of call, and I think everyone around the table understands this, to simply say, if it's possible that someone can do this, and as we've heard, anything's possible, then by all means we should, in a time of a housing crisis, of escalating costs, yes, it will cost money to move it, there's no doubt. I'm not going to try and put a figure on that. It will also cost council, as is in the report, $70,000 to demolish and remediate the site. Things cost money, no doubt. But it also costs about $400,000 to build a house. So if you can move a house and restore it, decontaminate it in the process, and re-stump it, and do it for less than half the price of a new house, then that's probably a good outcome for someone. We don't know the answers to those questions, and we don't have to answer those questions today. All we have to decide is whether we would like to at least explore this option in a timely way, which would mean most likely, without stipulating it, because I don't think that was our point here today, most likely a few weeks, maybe 4 weeks for an expression of interest, and a couple of months for someone to actually organise themselves to do this. It may not happen. Maybe no one will apply for it. Maybe 30 people will. I don't know. And I'm not going to try and guess that today. It's the principle of the matter I think is important. In a housing crisis, at a time when waste recovery is important, this seemed like a simple step that we could take to ensure that all possibilities have been explored. So I'll leave it at that. I think I won't put the motion, but I'd be happy to move on.
That'll be fine. Thank you. Councillor Kai as the seconder.
I'm all for seeing how much we can recycle and salvage out of the old house there. So I really agree with Councillor Walker. I mean, one man's rubbish might be another man's treasure. You never know. So if someone...
So Councillor Kai, just as a point of order, that this is just about the amendment. This isn't to demolish. This is around an amendment to move.
That's what I mean. So I'm happy, like, if we could have that on there, if anyone wants to come along and pursue it and see if they can have it relocated, I think that would be a great idea. And even if that doesn't happen, I'm hoping maybe there will be, parts of it will be salvaged and recycled and used somewhere else so that there is less materials going to landfill. So, yes.
Thanks, Councillor
Thank
Kai.
you.
Further contributors to the amendment, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, I did in fact sell a house that I owned, and it was relocated to another property. It was going to cost me only $10,000 to demolish it. However, when I put it for sale, I had 7,000 views of my ad in 48 hours, and I had 30 serious conversations with people who wanted to buy it. So do I think there's interest in someone trying to buy a property, as Councillor Walker said, or a house to relocate? Yes, there are many that will try. There are issues. It's got asbestos in it, but asbestos is only an issue when you break it. So if it was where the cut was going to be made in the house, that would be an issue. If it's not going to be there, then it's not an issue at that time. It would be when they came to meet the current building standards once they had it relocated. To me, the person who bought my house paid me $10,000, saved me $10,000, and he hopes to have a 3-bedroom house for around $150,000. That is significantly less than it would cost to build a house of similar size in today's market. It would be the same, one hopes, for this place. However, this is much more logistically difficult. Mine was not on the side of a hill that had to go across a bridge with power lines that would have to be lifted, amongst others. However, I do think it's an opportunity for us for a further 4 weeks or so to consider whether there is interest out there people will come and soon make the assessment whether it's viable or not, and then they would have to go around the process to understand all of the things that have been mentioned. And I think that's for us to outsource to the potential relocator of the house. At the end of the day, there may be no relocator, but there may be people who approach us who say, we will demolish and recycle. And that could be something that could come out of this. However, I won't try to change the amended motion to include it, because I think it will only make it more difficult. So let's just leave it as it is. But I'm happy to support the amended motion for this, because I think recycling of housing is something that we used to do a bit of. Up until the 1980s, most houses had wooden floors rather than concrete. Since then, you know, and a house built in 1980 is now over 40 years old, is close on 50 years old. Most of those are now being built on concrete slabs, which makes it impossible. So that's probably why there's lesser demand and lesser examples of this type of relocation going on. However, I do feel in this particular instance, we should at least give the community the opportunity to do so, rather than send in the demolition crew to just demolish it. And despite what others might say, yes, we'll save the doors and the windows, sometimes a lot of that just gets broken in the whole process of trying to remove them, rather than trying to relocate the whole house. So I'm happy to support Councillor Walker's amended motion at this stage.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Further contributions to the amendment? Anything further to close, Councillor Walker? Okay, putting the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor McMahon against. It is the motion that, no? For Kelsey, is this a substantive motion, or this is just the motion now, isn't it? Just the motion. Okay. Any further contributions? This is the whole kit caboodle now.
Just to clarify, the mover and seconder have already spoken to the original motion?
No.
Yeah. Oh.
No, no one's spoken.
Oh. Oh, you're asking a question.
Any further contributions? Okay, putting it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor McMahon against. The motion is carried. Thanks, guys. At 21, we've got 21.1, the status report on council decisions as at the 12th of March. Recommendation being to receive the report. Somebody please to move. Councillor Britton has moved, seconded by Councillor Harris. Any contributions? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. 21.2, we've got status report, notice of motions. Recommendation to receive. Somebody move. Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Priest. Any contributions? Putting it to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, motion is carried. We have no late items, no closed council. We're closing today's meeting at 3:27, with the next meeting to be held at this location on the 2nd of April. Thank you.